Hello, my friend. Welcome to today's podcast episode. I'm your host, Joelle Cease. Today is going to be a December girl chat. We're going to talk about a bunch of random things, but I do have kind of the main meat of this episode, sharing with you the things that I do that keep me on track and intentional with my goals. And this came about because somebody else was giving me a really, really nice compliment, in all honesty, that when I say I'm going to do something, whether I say it on social media or I say it to somebody in person, I follow through. Whereas they noticed a pattern for themselves of like starting and stopping and quitting and getting up, giving up, or saying they were going to do something and then not following through on it. And so I wanted to create an episode where if you're wondering, like, what are some things that you can do to keep you on track with your intentional goals, then this episode is going to be helpful to you. But like, you guys, I'm recording this early mid-December, and first I must ask, how are we doing? How are you doing, my friend? I know there is a lot on your to-do list. There is a lot that you need to get done. There is a lot that is overwhelming, that's lingering, that you don't have the loop closed on a lot of things. There's more events. And I hope this episode is truly just a little bit of solace in that. Maybe you're getting things done around the house. Maybe you're on your commute. I'm going to crack open a fun beverage, a sparkling water. This is Spindrift, which I don't usually gravitate towards Spindrift, but here's some ASMR of me opening it. Maybe I don't think you could hear that with the audio filter I put on top of it, but this is the Spindrift sparkling water cranberry punch. I got it at Aldi because I thought since it was a mix of like cranberry and orange and lime and grapefruit, I was like, I may like that. And as my kids would say, it's good, not great. So let me take a sip. You take a sip too. If you haven't had any water today, go get yourself some water. I'm terrible about drinking water in the winter, you guys. I should not be having this right now. I should be having plain water, but you know what? It's our time together. So I'm going to have a fun little beverage while we chat. So I want to just remind you guys, like, December, keep your eyes on your own paper. And you know what I mean by that. Like, stop following people on social media where they're sharing that they're getting things for their kids and it's like a $1,200 stocking stuffer. Like, no, that's just not realistic. Can we tangent on something? I didn't even have this written down in my notes, but I've been wanting to talk about it somewhere. Duh, we talk about this kind of stuff here. I need somebody to do a deep dive on Christmas. Krista Horton's Days of Christmas giveaways. I need to know, like, number one, is there anybody who has actually won one of her giveaways, received it, and lived to tell the tale? Because, oh my gosh, even my small town people who don't share stuff on social media are sharing every single day on the blah 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 of Krista Miss. I'm like, what is going on? I need to know, how does this increase her, like, this has got to increase her followers. And I have a lot of monetary questions. Like, is this mostly stuff that she collects from brands and she's intentional and she's like, hey, I do this Christmas, can you send me something to give away in it? You know, she's not I would imagine she's not paying for those products. They've probably been sent to her for free, which is, you know, totally fine. But like, I truly want you guys to know that, like, I think influencers, I talked a while ago of how I think the online industry is changing for the coaching space. I really think that it's shifting for the influencer space too. I think people are just so tired of consumerism and so tired of like things being really, really expensive. There not being a lot of discretionary or disposable income in families. And I don't know, you guys, I just cannot believe the chokehold that Christmas has on Instagram. And I'm like, do you know how many people are sharing and tagging and following this woman? And does she actually pick, like, where does she announce the winners, and have they actually received their giveaway items? I feel like this is going to be a documentary someday. I'm sorry, but I really, really think it is. And then back to the point of keep your eyes on your own paper. Like when it comes to you and your family and creating the Christmas magic, remember there are definitely intentional things you can do that don't cost any money. You know, if you already have sleds, go sledding, have hot chocolate, easy peasy, memory done. Make it even more fun. Do it in when it's dark outside. Give the kids a couple little glow sticks or whatever so they can have a glow in the dark sledding situation. Popcorn in a movie, like breakfast for dinner. We're going to be making Grinch Rice Krispie treats because I was like, okay, I'm not huge into holiday baking, but we saw this video of a creator doing and decorating Rice Krispie treats, and I'm like, that's easy enough, right? And they can totally have creative control. I don't have to be monitoring to make sure they turn out pretty or they taste good, because Rice Krispie treats, you can't mess it up, right? Butter, marshmallows, Rice Krispies. So keep your eyes on your own paper. Like, set the budget that works for you and your family, and don't like compete. If somebody's having a Christmas extravaganza and they're spending a lot of money, we love that for them. And we love that for them, and we're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing." When we all love to be Macaulay Culkin or Kevin waking up in the plaza on Christmas to a sea of toys. We would love that. That would be a magical Christmas. But realistically, eyes on your own paper. Like, set your budget and what works best for you, because at the end of the day, it's there's so much magic that you can make in moments, but also however you want to celebrate it, you go ahead and do that. Actually, I was at this women's Christmas get together that somebody put on, and oh my gosh, she had the most beautiful Christmas trees, plural, in her house, and they were so beautiful. She could seriously start a side business decorating Christmas trees for like displays at public places because it's so gorgeous. And I love that for her. And I was just hearing the comments of like, oh, that's not me. I couldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I was just wholly in the mindset of, she loves this. I'm going to stand here and like gawk at these beautiful decorated Christmas trees that she has. She has a gift, she has a talent. That's amazing. And that doesn't mean that anybody else has to have multiple Christmas trees in their house, right? It's so beautiful though. It was such a fun night. There have been some really fun, magical, special local moments that have happened. I mean, this last Saturday was one where we went to our little tiny towns our breakfast with Santa Christmas thing, and then our thrift store does something where the kids can go shopping for people and they wrap it, and then those presents get put under the tree, and that's really fun to do. We ended up, watching just the local basketball games and stuff like that, and just trying to still get out of the house and do things so we're not all getting cabin fever, but also we are spending a lot of time together at home just doing simple things. Like, ask me how many times we've watched The Grinch. And if you ask me, which Grinch do you watch? All three of them. We bought and have purchased all three of them. My kids have been obsessed with The Grinch since my oldest was 1.5 years old. And we watched The Grinch in July, but we're back into watching The Grinch all the time. And it's just fun and simple, and it's okay to keep it that way, right? Make the memories of which you want to make. Keep your eyes on your own paper is basically what I'm saying. The next thing that I'm going to talk about briefly before I get into the things that really help me keep on track with my goals through the year is the streaming and the music streaming, and LOL at what my Spotify, my Pandora, and my Apple Music. Yes, I get all three. I am a premium member of all three of those. I am subscribed and pay for Apple Music because mostly my kids are my Apple Music. So I'll make my running playlist, like I made my 10K playlist in my Apple Music and stuff like that. But my kids get hyper fixated on music. And so I have that. According to Apple Music, my top listened albums were K-pop Demon Hunters and the Minecraft soundtrack. And my top listened to song for 2025, according to Apple, was Steve's Lava Chicken. And then our top artist that we listened to was Morgan Wallen, and that is because my oldest son, well, all of us like listening to Morgan Wallen. So we had his album on a lot this year, but I thought that was so funny that Apple Music has always kind of been my platform that I use when we're in the car with the kids and when the kids have their specific things that they listen to and then they don't listen to it. I stream it through Apple. Spotify for me was Luke Combs. So Spotify is mostly like my platform. So I obviously top podcast on Spotify was The Toast. I really liked that they have their video on Spotify now because I used to watch their video on YouTube, but I like that it's on Spotify. And then what else was on my Spotify? So Spotify is, yeah, when I go to listen to my own music. So oftentimes I'll put like 90s country women playlist and I'll pick something like that, or cardio kickboxing playlist, but my top album on my Spotify was Sabrina Carpenter Short and Sweet. That still was my favorite album. Top song was Ordinary, the song by Alex Warren, but the Luke Combs version where they did a duet of it at, was it Stagecoach? I think, yeah, it was at a music festival. They did it and they put that on Spotify. I listened to that song over and over and over and over and over again. It's so good. And Warren Ziders obviously was another top one. Morgan Wallen. Spotify is a pretty good representation of the music I listen to, as well as Pandora. So what do I use Pandora for? Pandora is what I go to when I am working out and I just want a hodgepodge of songs. Like I have Sabrina Carpenter radio, Meghan Trainor radio, I have Bachelorette radio. That will always bring up a populated mix of just like fun, girly songs. And so when I would go on walks or outdoor runs, I often just put on a Spotify playlist and I'd let it be random and surprise me. And then I would set my pace to my walk or run at that. Every day when I work out, whether I'm following a guided workout or doing my own thing, I've got my Pandora on. So my top listen to Pandora station was Sabrina Carpenter, and my top Pandora artist was also Sabrina Carpenter. She just has some fun girly pop songs. After that was actually Tate McRae and then Meghan Trainor, Megan Maroney, Mackenzie Carpenter. Like the country girls were coming in strong then after that. But I'm crazy when it comes to music, guys. And that really kind of leads me into talking about, the main meat of this girl chat is how I really track and stick to and be intentional with my personal goals. And if you haven't already yet, I know that every year people bring in the new energy of like, this is going to be my year. This is going to be the year I crush it. This is the year that da 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 da. And I just want you to know, like, my mindset year over year, even with the new year, is that like, this is going to be a year that life lifes, because life is always going to life and life is always going to happen. And I think oftentimes people don't stick to their goals or stick to their intentions because it's like something big or small may come out of the blue, or just life lives. And then you think like, oh, well, then I can't do these things because life lives. And my mindset is always just like, I'm going to set these goals, set these intentions, and no matter what life throws at me, I'm going to try to figure it out. And yes, sometimes that does mean course correcting or course changing, but having this mindset that like this is going to be the best year ever and nothing bad's going to happen and it's going to be so perfect and I'm going to stick to everything. I think that's building block one of building on a cracked foundation. Like life is going to life. And if you haven't already started being reflective of like, you December 2024 versus you December 2025. This is a principle from one of my favorite books I've talked about over and over again called The Gap and the Gain, of looking back and measuring like what went on, what happened. So if you haven't devoted a little bit of time in December, maybe it's one evening or one Sunday morning, or maybe like just 30 minutes while you're drinking your coffee one morning, go through your camera roll and really reflect on what you did do this year. What went well for you this year? Because there are definitely things that you've progressed in, ways that you've changed, ways that you've transformed, ways that you have moved forward. And they may seem small. They may seem like they don't, and without acknowledging them, if you have a mindset that's like me, that oftentimes can really compare where you are to where you want to be, which is the gap, you can feel like, gosh, I'm just not making progress. But if you intentionally are like spending December being reflective of like, oh yeah, we did this and that happened, and like how far we've come doing this project or that, you'll really feel this energetic momentum of being intentional and making small progressive steps to help you get even closer to your goals. So if you haven't yet, my friend, spend the rest of December just being reflective and being reflective of how this year is different than last year. What has worked well? How have you moved forward? How are things different? What did you accomplish? And how I often do this, and this is going to kind of get into what we're talking about today. So I want to roll into that, like just by saying, be a little reflective the rest of the month and just really see how that alone leads you into the new year energy in a different way. I feel like you'll then set goals that can stack upon what you've already accomplished versus stacking goals based off of what you haven't done or where you are like really gripping to go or that are so far off from where you are right now. So the things that I do through the year that help me stay on track and intentional is I take things a quarter at a time. And that's because the planner that I use is the Horatio printing planner, dream planner. And this planner I have used for at least I have 5 of them. So this is my 5th year using this planner. And there's built-in quarterly reflections. So every quarter, I'm sitting down and reflecting the different areas of my life. And I'm answering, why did I rate that area of my life in that way? And then I'm setting intentions on how I could be better in said area. So, for example, one of my personal areas of reflection last year was in my physical health. I was like, I know that I am strong. I know that I was struggling with some like back pain last year, and I did not have any sort of cardio capacity, endurance, or otherwise. And I wanted to improve that. So I set the goal to run a 10K. And I started small because I knew I couldn't go from running 0 miles to running 20 miles, right? I started small and I reflected and set that intention throughout that quarter. And then on the second quarter, I'm like, okay, now how do I even improve upon this goal? But it's a well-rounded, like I'm talking, think about your marriage, your motherhood, your physical health, your career, your home, your like personal well-being, like your own emotional well-being, your spiritual nature. Like think of all of your finances, all of those areas of your life. There's 8 of them in the planner, and rate yourself. And then definitely on those areas where you rate yourself low, or where I rate myself low, I'm picking one intentional thing I can do every single week that will help me be better at that goal. So let's just say if your goal was finances and you were like, oh, savings is just not where we want it to be, then you would, rate yourself in finances. You would tell yourself why, you would evaluate why you set that question. And then your intention would then be once a week, I am going to deposit. You could pick a certain amount, you could pick any amount and say, on this day of the week, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to add a certain amount into my savings account, even if it was $1, right? Like you could probably always put more than that into your savings account, but that's just an example of how to take what I just said and make it like really practical and tangible. Like if it's something where you're like, oh, this was a good one. This is actually a personal example of mine with eating and nutrition. So for me, it was like when I had the realization of like, girl, it's your nutrition. Then when I rated myself low in my physical health, I really evaluated that like it is my nutrition. And then my intention was to meal plan and do the weekly grocery shopping, making sure I did not include the foods that I overeat on, and also making sure that I had a good, satisfying, intentional, healthy lunch. Because when I do not have a fulfilling lunch, that's when I start snacking at 3 o'clock, and that's when I start overeating and blah, 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 blah. Versus if I have a really great size lunch, I can tend to control the rest of what I eat. Okay. So that became but I do this quarterly, you guys. Each quarter, I look at these different areas of my life. I give myself a rating. Be honest with myself and evaluate why I rated myself in that way. And then I set a small intention, especially for the ones that I rate myself low in, to help me improve that area of my life. And the second thing, I think it does have to do with the paper planner that I use, but also you could do this in any planner or any notebook, is I write it down. I write things down. I am always writing things down. And I always wrote things down prior to having little kids. And then after having the kids and really realizing like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of ping-ponging all over. And sometimes I'll like set a notebook down and I don't have I just couldn't get to it or whatever. So I stopped writing down goals, and I stopped writing down intentions, and I stopped writing down to-dos and what my day was going to look like and planning things out. And what I found is I just felt so spacey. And whether it be goals or to-dos or intentions or reflections or ideas or things that you want to do, writing them down increases the likeliness of it happening by 42%. Now, sometimes I will write down a mega to-do list and it'll be way too many things that I can get done in a single day. But it's like an energy release when I write them all down, because I don't have to keep these things in my head. And even when I was doing my personal 2025 reflection and celebration, it felt so good to write down, like, I ran my 10K and I ran my 10K in 1 hour and 6 minutes. My goal this year is there'll be more episodes on my like upcoming fitness goals and things like that coming in January. Coming the end of December. But my goal is to get under an hour. We brought the kids on a family trip to Wisconsin Dells. My husband and I had an awesome 10-year anniversary wedding date, and we went golfing. I got golf clubs. We got a sauna. Living in Sync hit 200,000 downloads. We went to a bunch of concerts. We did my grandma's 95th birthday party. And I remembered all of these things because I was going through my camera roll, and just writing these things down felt so good. I mean, I'm not going to list all of mine to you, but it was just like, yeah, we did that. The mind and pen to paper action, whether you're journaling, whether you're reflecting, whether you're writing down to-dos, whether you're setting intentions, like a 42% more chance of it happening if you write it down. Like, become a pen to paper girl, my friend. Like, if you're not a pen to paper person, even if that means like sometimes you're throwing away post-it notes that are random, or you have 5 different notebooks, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have, it's not saying you need to write them down in an organized way so that it's color coded in this pen and it all is in one notebook, or you need to have 5 different notebooks. No, the fact is just if you simply write it down, you are 42% more likely to achieve it, or to remember it, or to follow through with it. And that's what matters. It's not about the perfect notebook or the perfect planner or the perfect color coding system. It's about putting pen to paper and what that does, the hand and mind memory and movement. And like, you got to slow down a little bit. I know a lot of people will transfer some things onto their phone and lists or to-do lists, and I do that too, but there's just something different about pen to paper. So I'm a pen to paper person, and I really do think that's helpful. Like, even in my planner or in my day-to-day and in my weekly planning, I'm usually writing down what workouts I'm going to do on what day of the week. Now, 100%, if life happens on Wednesday and I don't get to my workout on Wednesday, either decide, do I do Wednesday's workout Thursday, or do I just move on and do Thursday's workout Thursday and just continue going? That depends, but I'm writing all of these things down. It's all pen to paper. The next thing is, I'm realistic in the season that I'm in. So I'm very intentional about, in the summer, when my kids are not in school and they are home with me more often and I'm bringing them to different activities, like, I'm very intentional about the workload or the extras or the different things that I put onto my plate. And then it's entirely different when it's like January, my kids are in school and it's not really nice outside. And so oftentimes maybe I'll do more marketing for certain offers that I have for work, or maybe I'm going to batch record more things, or maybe I'm going to be more intentional about decluttering because it's about being inside, right? I'm super intentional and realistic in the season that I'm in. And that often stems from the quarterly reflection, evaluation, and intention. I operate my day-to-day on a Tuesday in June is very different than my Thursday in February. Like, just the day-to-day regular things are super different. And so I live in, one of the gifts that I really learned from one of my podcast clients, Corey Lee, she's been a guest on the show before, was in recovery, they really are just it's ingrained to just take it one day at a time and do well with the things that are right in front of you and take care of the things. Like, today's things are for today. And so when we are often in a new year, you're going to hear this kind of stuff happening and going around in January of like setting New Year's resolutions for the whole year. I really want you to think more quarterly and think about what season of life you're in. If you've got little kids and you're waking up in the middle of the night multiple times, like if you're waking up to feed a child, or if, your 4-year-old is going through a sleep regression, because they do that when they're even a little bit older, maybe this isn't the time to set early morning workouts and work out then, right? Maybe you're getting a workout during a nap time or during a lunch break or during when the kids are awake and you're going outside together. It just depends on what season you're in. And I think that was always something that worked in my favor when my kids were little, not in school and at home with me, was I just looked at it like, this is my reality today, and how do you make the best of it, versus, oh my gosh, well, Joelle's an online entrepreneur. She can make her schedule. I don't have to start work at any given time. I start work at like 9:30 a.m. But I totally understand. My husband's somebody who has to get out of the door at 7 a.m. But like, he never once is like, oh, I wish I had your schedule to do the things that I want to do. He's usually just like, well, this is the time that I can do the things that I want to get done because of what his schedule is and what his reality is, right? So be realistic about your season of life and optimizing that. And I really do think like quarter over quarter. And then the last thing that I do is each month, and once again, this is triggered because of the planner that I use, and I'm not affiliated with this planner at all, you guys. I have thought about signing up for their affiliate program or their influencer program, but honestly, like, it's here nor there if you purchase it from me or if you purchase any planner or if you just use this in a journal or whatever. But I do a monthly praise report. So at the end of each month, there's a blank paper and all it says is praise report at the top. And its intention is for you to go back and look through your month and write out the things that you want to praise for, the things that went well, the things that you want to acknowledge, and the things that you accomplished, and all of that. And sometimes that's me, putting all together what my business income was for that month. Sometimes it's recalling things that we did, like going to concerts or certain family things that we did, certain milestones that the kids hit, right? Like, I have even on my 2025 celebrations that my youngest got a new bike and started to ride his bike without training wheels. Like, that was a huge thing for him. Him learning to really swim independently was something that was really huge for him. And I do this month over month. So that's also what made my 2025 celebrations really easy to do, because I can just flip through my paper planner. You can flip through your camera roll of your phone, and your paper planner are the two things where if you're like, what even happened this year? Just spend 5 minutes looking through your camera roll, looking through your paper planner, and I bet you're going to come up with a handful of things that are things worth celebrating. And I have this every single month. Sometimes this only takes me 2 minutes. Sometimes I'm really like detailed in it and I'm really celebrating and I'm writing and I'm even like kind of decorating the page a little bit with stars and hearts or, little doodles and things like that. But sometimes it is just plain and simple, but it gets done. And I really think it's important to be reflective of like, what is going well, what did work well, because that momentum will help carry you. If you have not read the book, The Gap and the Gain, oh, my friend, so good. Another thing, and this is outside of the main meat of this episode, but another thing that went really well for me this year was still listening to my audiobooks as I'm getting ready for the day. I'll just end this episode with sharing some of my own celebrations with you guys. And I share this not to like brag, but to kind of have a time capsule for me. So with podcast production, like, this was the first year in 15 years that I didn't have my Beachbody income. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, that was a little hard. Like, it was harder than what I thought it was going to be, because I hadn't been actively working and growing my Beachbody business for a couple years. I've got a couple episodes on how I felt about it during that time. But this was the first year, like January, our income was done. And I know that was scary for a lot of people. And I started off the year not too worried about it. But kind of midway through the year, I really realized and really recognized, like, wow, I had a lot of identity wrapped up in how much I made. I really had false confidence in that stream of income and like me making that much money. And so I have had to do a lot of inward growth on like And as I did that inward growth, like podcast production and other opportunities and endeavors sparked. And I've been so blessed to have amazing clients. Like I remember when I started just, touching my toe in podcast production and doing it, I was undercharging then. And I remember being like, I have no idea how this will ever surpass what my Beachbody income was. And I had many months that my podcast production income surpassed my Beachbody income of what it was in the past. And so thank you to all of my clients. Thank you to all of you who listen to my podcast, Living in Sync. If you listen to podcasts, whether it be one of my clients, me, or somebody else, make sure that you're engaging with their content and sharing with them how much you love their show. Because sometimes with podcasting, they think that like they don't get the dopamine hit from podcasts like they do on social media. Like if you heart somebody's story or you comment on somebody's reel or whatever, it gives them a dopamine hit and encourages them to keep creating content there. If you want your podcasters to keep podcasting, leave the rating and reviews, slide into their DMs on Instagram when you can, and share how the episodes really impact you. Like that's something I really, really wish more podcast listeners would do, is go a little bit out of your way to interact with the people that you love listening to. And gosh, we had so many amazing clients. I was working on and behind the scenes of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 podcasts this year. And then my own being 11 behind the scenes. We did 3 rebrands for different people. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podcast launches this year, which is so amazing and crazy cool. Hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Like I stopped keeping track. But another thing that I really liked doing was keeping track of the books that I read throughout the year. And my favorite reads. Okay, so if you are into spicy dark romance, Sonia Gray, the Melnikov series, my absolute favorite. Rewind It Back. That one's not dark romance, but that's romance. I really love the Rewind It Back. I read others, but those were my favorite that stood out the most. The personal growth ones that I really loved all of these. I can't even pick. You guys have heard me talked about almost all of these. The Art of Spending, Gradually Then Suddenly, Raising Amazing, Power Pause, When Food is Your Drug, Diet Disruption, and I Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen. Like those books were so, so, so good. And then the one that I'm starting with for December, which will also be my January book, I've been recommending a lot. You guys will hear me recommend it a lot in upcoming episodes. The book, The Joy of Movement. The same author, Kelly, you guys, I can't say her last name, McGogliel, PhD, has the book, The Upside of Stress. And that's what I am going to be listening to in January. So that kind of gives you a little insider peek. I've got some really great episodes coming for you guys, but just to round it out and to bring it back home of what I want you to remember from this episode is, number one, like, keep your eyes on your own paper. Do what is best for you and your family. Create the magical moments, but don't compare what somebody else does compared to what you do or do not do. And then be reflective the rest of December. Like really think about the good things that happened this year. And I think that will already spark a different way for you to start your goals and intentions for 2026. And, when you think of 2026, think of just Q1 and what your intentions, what your reflections are for each area of your life. And then give yourself a little evaluation, set an intention, write them down, write these things down. Doesn't matter where you write them down. You could write them down on a random piece of paper, crumple it up and throw it in the garbage, because that doesn't matter. It's not about where you write it down or how you organize it, it's 42% more likely that it'll happen or that you'll achieve it if you write it down. So write things down, be realistic about the season that you're in, and month over month, make sure you're doing a check of what went well. If you haven't read The Gap and the Gain, I highly recommend that be the one and only personal development book that you read in 2026, and it will be game changing. If you like this episode, my friend, please come on over to Instagram. I'd love to chat with you about it. Let me know your goals, what it is you're working on. Some of my main ones for 2026 have to do with health and crushing a 10K again. That was so fun to do and to achieve. And now we've established, 1 hour and 6 minutes, and it's just my intention to improve upon there. And I'm already so proud with the progress that I've made in my personal health. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later, friend. Bye.